Welcome to Marketplace Tech Bytes. It is our weekly roundup of some of the big goings-on in the tech world. I'm Meghan McCarty Carino. This week, Silicon Valley goes to Washington. Crypto markets have seen a record rally since the election. And what is behind Reddit's explosive growth? Here to discuss all that is our regular contributor, Anita Ramaswamy. She's a financial analysis columnist for The Information. Welcome, Anita.
Hey, Meghan. Great to be here.
So good to have you. As always, we're going to kick things off with our Byte of the Week. This is a number that gives us some insight into our top stories. So, Anita, what number do we need to know this week?
So the Byte of the Week that we'll talk about today is the number 15.4 billion. And that's the amount of dollars that two of Elon Musk's companies, Tesla and SpaceX, primarily SpaceX, have accounted for in government contracts over the past 10 years.
All right. And of course, yes, Elon Musk and his involvement in politics is the big story this week. We don't always want to keep talking about politics and the election on this show about tech, but the fact is that tech has kind of become intertwined in this election in a way I don't think we've really ever seen before, and that is largely in the person of Elon Musk. Of course, this week, President-elect Donald Trump announced that Elon Musk would co-lead this kind of quasi-agency. We're not really sure what to call it, but the Department of Government Efficiency, along with biotech entrepreneur and GOP candidate Vivek Ramaswamy. I've seen a lot of jokes about the Department of Government Efficiency needing two people in charge of it. But Anita, what do we know so far about what this project, I guess we'll just call it Doge in the parlance of Elon Musk. What is it? What are they trying to do?
So we don't know a ton of details yet. We know who's leading it, like you mentioned. I'm not related to Vivek Ramaswamy, just throwing that out there. But anyway, so basically what we know is that this Department of Government Efficiency, known as Doge, which is supposed to be a reference to a cryptocurrency that Elon Musk is a really big fan of, is going to be advising the Trump administration, as Trump said, outside of the government. So they may not directly be making decisions, but the whole goal of the agency is to basically cut spending from different areas within the federal budget. And so I suppose they're going to be making recommendations to the Trump administration of where to make those cuts. And I think the interesting part is that Elon Musk, like you said, Meghan, has been such an influential figure in this election. He donated $120 million to the Trump campaign. He's really helped amplify Trump's message on Twitter or on X, the social media platform that he bought. And he's just been a really central figure. So it's interesting to see him get this sort of, prestigious appointment within the administration.
Right. Elon Musk has said that he wants to cut about $2 trillion from the federal budget. That's like 30% of the federal budget. Of course, he kind of, was known at the time, Twitter, now X, for kind of going in and making major cuts, more than 50% of the staff. But as you noted, Elon Musk has some quite big entanglements with the federal budget in terms of his companies, SpaceX being, the biggest in terms of government contracts, but Tesla also has kind of been a beneficiary of federal incentive programs, loan programs, subsidies. This seems kind of like the definition of a conflict of interest. Where do we go from there?
It's tough to say. I mean, at this point, it wasn't just the federal contracts that connected Elon Musk to the Trump campaign. It was also the social media influence and, him sort of shaping the discourse. I think the interesting part that I've been processing is how different leaders across tech have been taking this and reacting to it. In 2016, we had a lot of different tech CEOs being really devastated and upset and, tweeting, posting, getting out these messages that were very anti-Trump. And for example, Sam Altman, he had tweeted, "Tonight we cry, we despair, and we fear," in 2016. This time around, all these different tech CEOs and prominent figures in the industry have been congratulating Trump on his win and have seemed a lot more hesitant to say anything. And, I noticed when I was looking through some of these comments, the CEO of Box, Aaron Levy, he was a big fundraiser for Kamala Harris's campaign. But at the end of the day, he said that even though he has concerns about what the Trump administration plans to do, he thinks that Elon Musk's involvement is a reason for him to be optimistic about the administration. So I think Musk has sort of helped shift some of the discourse in Silicon Valley. And it really is not the same reaction that we were seeing last time around.
All right, well, spinning off from Doge now to go into some crypto news. The industry, particularly Bitcoin, has been seeing just this incredible rally since election day. Bitcoin topped 90,000 for the first time Wednesday. Some traders expect it could reach $100,000 by the end of the year. Anita, what is driving this?
The election result is a really big factor. Bitcoin's price is up 30% since election day, which wasn't that long ago. And one big reason behind this is that the crypto industry was actually the largest corporate donor of any industry to this year's presidential elections. There's been a lot of controversy around crypto regulation. A lot of folks in the industry were expressing dissatisfaction, and they're seeing now Trump getting elected as someone who's going to be more friendly and more pro crypto in the US.
So, Bitcoin specifically has been kind of trending up all year, thanks in part to these new spot Bitcoin exchange traded funds that were approved by the SEC in January. What's significant about these? Why do they distinguish Bitcoin so much?
So, the Bitcoin ETF was a really big moment for the industry in the US. Other countries had already approved them to be able to be traded, but the US had really held off. And this application was with the SEC and was sort of waiting for approval. And it finally got approved by Gary Gensler's Securities and Exchange Commission in January. And ever since, the price has been climbing pretty significantly. Bitcoin is up about 99%, 100% year to date right now, whereas Ethereum is up as well year to date, but around 30%. There has been approval as well of Ethereum traded, like Ethereum spot ETFs as well in the US, but those approvals came a bit later. And there's just been a lot of momentum building around Bitcoin for the past year in 2024. And part of that, as well as just that Bitcoin, got some exposure with Trump specifically saying that he wanted to create a national reserve in the US of Bitcoin, not any other cryptocurrency.
All right, now finally, let's move on to a story that you've been following, Anita, which is what is behind the Reddit rally. The company went public just this year, back in March. Its value has tripled since then. It's jumped 40% just since its reporting earnings in October. What's been going on there?
So Reddit is kind of having a moment now, which is really interesting. They went public earlier this year, and the company is almost 20 years old. And all of a sudden, in the past couple of quarters, let's say the past year, year and a half, they've seen a huge surge in daily active users on their platform. There are a lot of different reasons behind this. Some of it is just marketing and hype and getting the word out around their IPO, which there haven't been a ton of public offerings in the tech market. So there was a lot of attention on Reddit. And part of it as well is a new business model shift that they've started to engage in, where CEO Steve Huffman has said, look, we have all of this user generated content on Reddit and all these posts that people are making. Let's sell them to AI model makers as data and inputs for those large language models.
Right. So this has been like a gold mine, particularly for Google, with which Reddit made kind of a deal earlier this year. This is so interesting because I feel like there's been this sense that Google's search results had really degraded, kind of, the return of all this first SEO slop and now SEO AI slop. And people were really looking to Reddit to, find real human answers to questions. How important has this Google deal been to Reddit?
So the Google deal, it's hard to discern exactly the impact because some of it, the deal itself relates to Reddit results showing up in those AI generated summaries that you see when you Google something. So it'll be citing Reddit's content and making it more visible. At the same time, there's also been a lot of talk from the head of Google Search, Liz Reed, about how she wants to incorporate more human generated content in general. And so we can't really tell exactly how Reddit has been prioritized or re-ranked, but all of the different changes taken together, many of them were like they're Google's individual decisions. Reddit's content is now 4 times more visible in Google search results than it was last summer. And so Reddit has really benefited from Google's efforts to make Reddit content more accessible and to give that a bigger platform.
How sustainable does Reddit's growth look to be?
I think it's sustainable in the sense that the actual money that they're making from selling their data to large language models, like selling it to Google for Gemini and things like that, it's a really small part of their revenue. The part that's actually growing is their advertising revenue.
Mm.
And that is a result of people just getting on the platform and using it more. And one reason I think it's sustainable is that Reddit has a lot of users in the US who are looking at the content in English language. And one big initiative they're doing now is they're trying to translate that into different languages so they can get more international users and sort of feed that flywheel. Reddit is a lot earlier on that journey than other social media platforms. Like Snap has a lot more users internationally than they do in the US. For Reddit, it's the opposite case. So they have a little bit of runway to translate their content and get some more users that way.
I'm curious your read on kind of, how this rush of advertising dollars could affect the platform. As we noted, I think it's kind of been regarded as a bastion of like a true social network where humans really like to still engage there. It has kind of kept its weird niche communities and not felt like it has kind of followed the path of many social media platforms that have kind of been overrun by advertising. Is this going to happen to Reddit?
They're going to have to be really careful how they monetize. I mean, there's two ways to do it. One way is just to simply get more eyeballs on the platform, and then you're serving those users the same number of ads that you would to anyone. The other way to do it is to cram the feed with a bunch of different ads. So even if your user growth isn't really occurring, you can still make more money from selling ads. The second scenario hasn't really happened yet for Reddit, but there's a real possibility that it does. As soon as their user growth starts tapering off, they're going to be in the same situation that a lot of social media platforms are, where they have to find some way to make money, and then the content starts becoming less and less reliable. I personally hope that doesn't happen, but it's a real risk.
Right. This is a term we can't really say on public radio, but coined by the internet activist Cory Doctorow, and bleepification. I hope Reddit doesn't go down that path. All right. Anita Ramaswamy at The Information, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Meghan.
And thanks to all of you for watching Marketplace Tech Bytes Week in Review. Rosie Hughes produced this episode. I'm Meghan McCarty Carino. This is APM.